Money has to be a store of value and maintain its purchasing power over long periods of time. We learned in episode 1 that earlier in our history, our paper currency was just a claim check. It was a representation for real money of intrinsic value.
Wow. It's the So What Show. I'm sorry, man. I just gotta inundate you with information. It's my job. Welcome back to the So What Morning Show, where we're talking about money management, relationships, man. And that video is scary. If that's happening on a government level, and even on a global level, imagine what kind of impact is happening on an interpersonal level, on a relationship level.
Well, actually, I commend you for having this kind of show, Zoe, because, again, it's about perceived value. And this gives your listening audience an opportunity to reevaluate what's really important before they get caught up in that wheel of chasing money and losing sight of the fact that you are valuable in more aspects of your life than what you have in the bank that may or may not be worth something.
Right. Lynnette Khalfani,
yes,
are you still with us? Listen, I just want to say I really appreciate you coming on the show today. It means a lot. You know, me and Chucky go back a long way, and I thank Chucky on the air for connecting us way back when. And we got to connect more often because you are a powerhouse in this game. And once again, I want to thank you and also ask you to tell people what your website is, because you're going to get inundated by a lot of people, and I appreciate you for being on.
You're very welcome, and any time at all, just reach out, and we'll be here for you. My site, again, is askthemoneycoach.com. That's my free financial advice blog where people can reach out if they have questions or if they want to, find out more about coaching services or just want to read some of the content, maybe check out some of my videos, articles, and see where I'm going to be next on TV, on media, that kind of thing. The brother who was just sitting there talking with you is correct, because I always tell people, listen, your self-worth is totally different than your net worth.
Woo!
Your net worth is all about your assets or what you own minus your liabilities or what you owe. And frankly, some people might have a negative net worth, but that doesn't mean you don't have value as a person. It doesn't mean that you can't have a positive and a strong and an ever-developing sense of self-worth. The two are not connected.
Thank you so much, Lynnette. We appreciate you, and I'll be reaching out to you soon. Thanks again for being on the show. We got to keep it moving. I love you to death. You'll hear from me soon.
Okay, take care now.
All right. Listen,
bye-bye.
If y'all don't think we trying to change the world right now, I don't know what else to do.
Not trying, it's going down.
It's going down. I'm telling you, this is why we do the shows we do. We got other guests on the line. But before I get to my guests, I want to come back to my panel today. Bobby and Brandi, BB in the building.
Bad and black.
Bad and black in the building.
Right.
Let me just say, though, do you see the different dynamic that I'm trying to set up here? There's a game that needs to be played. Lynnette Khalfani is a master at how to play the game. But she left by saying something very, very powerful. There's something that supersedes the game. And you know what that is? Your own self-worth. But far too many of us are defined by what we have or by what we earn. Look at how you meet somebody. I'm a doctor. No, you're a person who practices medicine. You are defined by your occupation. Your occupation integrates you into an economy. We're all defined by how much we make.
You know, your smile increases your face value.
Go deeper, Bobby.
I love it.
And what I mean by that is simply people have gotten to the point where they're inundated with so many other propositions about who they are and what's important, what's valuable, to the extent where they'll go out and buy a vehicle, spend $200,000 on a car and forget what the purpose of having a car was. And they have to get from point A to point B. And they just mentioned the other day that Ludacris is having, he's in some form of bankruptcy or whatever. And then I heard some people say, oh man, he just covering up his assets. No, he wouldn't have put himself in that position if it wasn't just some money issues.
Right.
And I'm watching people like the game run around and make like it's Christmas every day, and nobody really checks these brothers and say, wait a minute, man, you got a fleeting opportunity to accumulate wealth. I wrote a book a few years ago called Let's Go to Work about Mr. Leon Gar, who came on the show.
Yes.
He said something that I want people to hear and hear it very clearly. It's not yours until you pay for it. And he used to tell me that all of the time. He said, Bobby, I made $1 million before I could spell $1 million. And I asked him, I said, what do you mean by that, Mr. Gar? He said, look, Bobby, I bought my way forward because he minimized debt. And he understood, he said, look, if I pay for something, it's truly an asset. But if you keep leveraging and accumulating debt that looks like an asset, man, it gets very confusing. It's like you got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But then how much of it do you actually own?
Right.
Because when you take these so-called assets to a bank to try to borrow money, they come back at you with that. But a point that you made a minute ago is real important, and I'll be quick with it. We have to learn how to impose our value on the system and leverage that. And we do that in terms of our own personal relationships. I get to go on your show, you get to come on my show. And our net value increases as well as our reach expands. And we have to condition ourselves to look at people as assets as opposed to liabilities.
Wow, good stuff, good stuff. We got another guest on the line that I'm about to go to right now. Again, I like to bring on professionals because, we got opinions. We got, our personal experiences, but I want to bring some pros in here to give you some valuable information. And one of those pros, Nancy Butler, right? Now, 30 years of experience in this area, okay? She's a certified financial planner and certified divorce financial analyst. Damn, a lot of people lose a lot in divorce. And divorce is such a cold situation. This is why they liken it to death. Because what happens with the kids, their identity gets reworked. Because when you were in a household with mom, dad, and a unit, now all of a sudden mom and dad are in two different households and there are different game rules for each household. Now your identity gets reworked, right? And then if one of those parents have more power than the other parent, that creates, this weird psychological flow for the kids. But then when we start talking about money, Lynnette Khalfani just said it, the number one indicator for being broke in America is divorce. So now we have somebody on the line right now. Nancy Butler, talk to us about money's impact on relationship and why is it so profound?
Hi there. How are you? Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, we're happy to have you. Let's talk about it.
Okay. I think one of the biggest issues I've seen coming from both sides of the fence, meaning looking at it from a financial planning standpoint, but then also looking at it as the divorce financial analyst. Typically what I've seen in the past, and you don't see this so much right now, which is a good thing, but you saw it a lot more in the past, where one spouse pretty much handled all the finances and the other spouse didn't really have the knowledge and experience and didn't even know what the other spouse was doing.
Wow.
So I think that's the first mistake, is you need to own this together, because you cannot be successful with one person managing it and the other one not being in the loop.
Are you saying, Nancy, that in a way you can't really trust your partner to do it by themselves? You really have to kind of oversee them or collectively do it? Is that what you're saying? Because to me that sounds like a trust issue.
I'm not saying that you can't trust them, because you definitely should be able to trust each other. Here's more what I'm talking about. If one person manages all the money and they know that they've set aside a certain amount, let's say, to spend on clothes each month or a trip each year, but the other one is not in the loop and doesn't know what those numbers are because they aren't really talking about it or agreeing to it, then the other person may be charging clothes that are above and beyond what the other person put up as the budget because they're just not communicating properly. That's more what I'm talking about.
Wow. So just, not purposely, I'm just putting aside a couple of hundred here, a couple of hundred there, and I'm not telling you about it.
Isn't that like the cheating, the financial cheating?
Infidelity.
Financial infidelity?
Yeah.
I haven't really heard it worded that way. Financial infidelity.
I'm gonna buy myself. I'm gonna buy myself a pair of $400 headphones, and because you're not really involved in the money like that, I control the money. I'm just not gonna tell you about it.
Here's what I would generally suggest. It's okay to have a his account, a her account, and an our account. The his and her account is money they each have that they do not have to get permission to use. They can have complete control and do what they want with it. so that they do feel that they have control over their own life and their own finances. The our account is where money from each paycheck is going into that joint account to cover the goals that they have jointly, paying bills jointly, buying a home, setting up retirement, setting up whatever their future goals are, taking a trip, whatever, and then have a small amount that separately they can manage on their own.
Right.
That way they come together as a team for the big things that really matter, and yet they can still feel they have their own independence financially as well.
That's good stuff, Brandi.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, how do you deal with in a situation like that when one person is contributing, say, more to the big pot, or maybe has less for his or her account? You know, because it seems like there could be issues created there as well.
Right, and that's okay. Here's how I would look at that. I'm going to use some quick and easy numbers. Let's say one spouse earns $100,000 and the other spouse earns $20,000. Well, if you look at it, the one that earns $20,000 earns 20% of the total income that's coming into the household. Therefore, that person should be responsible for 20% of the bills coming into that household and have 20% of the amount that's coming out to spend on themselves personally, or they may agree to do 50-50 for what they spend personally. But as far as what they're contributing to the joint expenses, it should be in relationship to what their earnings are.
I think that would be problematic, Doc.
I do too.
Why is that?
Well, that sounds like a business relationship.
That's what it is. Marriage is a contract, it's business.
I actually don't mind it being, I think it's okay for you and your partner to decide that, okay, we're going to create a contract so that we know what we're living with, and whatever you both decide and you're okay with that, then I think that's fine if that works for you.
But this is why 75% of marriages are in trouble, because of money. Money is the number one issue for marital problems, because what happens is, in my opinion, Nancy, smack me in the mouth if I'm wrong, I believe that the business takes precedent over all the other meaningful things in the relationship. I think people are dating and marrying resources. They're not dating and marrying people and really giving a fuck about the people. It's resource dating. That's what it is to me.
I think it's the personalities that come into play. And for some people, the way I explained it, it works really well. Because if they manage their money together with real good conversations and agreement, then money is no longer an issue, and they can truly enjoy each other's company, have a good time, and spend their life loving each other and not have to worry about all the other stuff because they've already taken care of it. For other people, you may be right that they will almost be offended by that, thinking that this is a business relationship and I didn't marry you for business. I married you because I love you, and we should be able to trust each other and work together. And I agree with that part of it too, but there still needs to be guidelines that you both agree with.
And that is agreed.
Odds are you are not going to find two people that think about money the same way. And unless you talk about it and work it out and have an agreement, it's not going to work.
Right. That's good stuff. And I'll say this. There's a researcher over at UCLA. He wrote a book. It's called Intimate Relationships. Thomas Bradbury and another guy, Benjamin, I forgot his last name, but you can get the book. It's called Intimate Relationships. And once again, they've done research on it. When you got money, your marriage lasts longer. When you don't have money, your marriage is shorter. On average, poor people stay married 6 years. After that 6 year of poverty, there's a breakdown. They got to move. They got to go their separate ways. Money tends to make things easier. If you look up the word affluence, it's Latin. It's from the same word that we get the flu from. Influenza, affluence is the same thing. It just means to flow. Money is social lubricant. It makes you flow through life a little easier. It's just that simple.
No, it's not that simple.
It's not, Bobby?
Not in my estimation.
Go ahead, Bobby.
And what I mean by that is quality of life. Because if we're dealing with percentages, and like I make 20%, you make 80%, then that's not a union. That's a negotiation.
That's what it is, Bobby.
Yeah. Then I don't know.
Well, you don't want that, huh? Exactly.
I don't want to have to scratch my head every time we deal with that, because there's some perceived values. All right.